There are so many of them, and they are so exuberant, the Biafrans. Even the refugees sing, especially when they have just been told their homes have been recaptured and they can go back to them. They sing when they get their daily meal. They sing when they work. They sing when they practice army marching. No guns, no shoes, but a song that goes something like, "Thank you, General Ojukwu, for giving us the medicine with which to fight our enemies instead of being murdered in our beds." A kind of spirit that has kept them going through 2 years of starvation and defeat. A spirit that arises partly out of fear. Fear expressed by Chief of Staff Philip Effian.
I am sure that if the Nigerians can control our links with the outside world, our radio links and our air links, so that we are completely cut off and they are in control of everything here, I am quite certain that they will really go to town and murder everything in sight.
A spirit and a self-confidence that has kept trucks rolling somehow, armies growing somehow, life organized somehow, in a nightmare period in which 1 out of 10, at least, of all their countrymen have died of starvation.
This is Lagos, capital of all Nigeria except Biafra. It is difficult to imagine that this is the headquarters city of a military government mobilized to fight a bitter civil war. But there is hardly a uniform in sight.
The fact is that Nigeria is not really mobilized. Only a few thousand square miles of a nation more than 100 times that big are touched by that war. There are no shortages. There is no starvation. In the vast northern stretches of Nigeria, the Muslim prayer day is consecrated as it has been for centuries. And there is not a soldier to be seen. "800 miles away at the University of Ibadan, the student body last week was preoccupied with final examinations. There is no draft in Nigeria, and almost none of the students have volunteered. Only in the war-wrecked ghost towns of the East could I see palpable evidence of a country fighting for its life, and not one Nigerian in 1,000 has seen this. In all of Lagos, the only building dressed for war is the military headquarters. And throughout the country, plaintive advertisements in government newspapers and radio stations plead with Nigeria's citizens. If you don't fight the war, they say, nobody else will. But the 35-year-old Nigerian Chief of State, General Yakubu Gowon, says there is a good reason why Nigeria does not go all out in the civil war.
We're fighting our own brothers, our own friends, our own probably colleagues that in fact we trained together. Now, I accept them as my people. I don't call them enemies. They're not my enemies. That's why in fact we don't use the word enemy. We use the word only rebels against Ojukwu and his clique and those in that fight for him, but not against all the Igbos. Now, therefore, we've got to do, we must not do anything that is going to make it impossible for us to reconcile at the end, or it will make the winning of the heart difficult in the end.
Let's pause now for some of the history behind this bloody war. It is said, though no one knows for sure, that 1 of every 4 black men on the African continent is a Nigerian. There were 55 million of them before the war. Nigeria was a creation of British colonialism. At the turn of the century, Britain carved out the richest area in West Africa, lumped together 250 tribes, each with its own culture, its own history, and arbitrarily called these people Nigerians. Of those tribes, 3 were dominant: the Hausas, most numerous, Muslims in the north; medieval, lagging behind the others in education and commerce; the Yorubas in the west, animists and Christians, the first educated; and the Igbos in the east, where Christianity is now strongest.
Some say the Igbos were the most backward, but in the last quarter century, with the aid of European missionary education, the Igbo overtook the others and became the most powerful economic group of all. But the Igbo also wanted political power. He resented the strength of the Hausas and Yorubas, who, since Nigerian independence in 1960, had run the country and grown corrupt. Riding a wave of popular discontent, Igbo and other military officers in 1966 succeeded in a coup d'etat. They executed key non-Igbo politicians and several of the top non-Igbo military officers. For a while, it seemed the country applauded the coup. But once in power, this new Igbo-dominated government was felt to be guilty of the same corruption as the previous government. Additionally, Igbo merchants and civil servants all over Nigeria began showing a newfound arrogance and sense of superiority, building a resentment that culminated in a wave of terror against the Igbo. Estimates of the number of Igbo massacred in northern Nigeria range from 7,000 to 30,000. Surviving Igbos abandoned their homes and businesses. Millions of them fled to the Igbo heartland in the east. There, led by the charismatic Ojukwu, army officer, son of a wealthy Igbo family, they seceded, proclaiming Biafra an independent nation. To begin with, Biafra claimed this corner of Nigeria, which included territory containing several minority tribes, some of whom did not support the Igbo cause.
Following Biafra's secession in 1967, Nigeria invaded from the north. Biafra struck back across its own boundaries, conquered and held for a while territory in federal Nigeria. But in 2 years of war, federal Nigerian troops have whittled down Biafra from over 50,000 square miles to little more than 3,000. The fighting in this war is sporadic. There are few fixed military positions, no real front lines, many hit-and-run raids by both sides, and an occasional big battle for a city or a road junction.
This is Nkwalo Junction, right now about 3 miles behind the furthest advance of Biafran troops to the south. There was heavy fighting here in early May as the Biafrans retook the town. Nkwalo Junction is 25 miles from Port Harcourt, a major seaport and refinery city the Biafrans want back. The Biafran troops we found at this road junction were a ragtag collection, looking more like irregulars than the frontline soldiers of the 14th Division, who are currently engaged in Biafra's most successful offensive of the war. How the Biafran army succeeds, armed as it is with an odd-lot collection of weapons, is a puzzle. Some at the front carry communist-made AK-47s, like those used by the Viet Cong. Some only World War I bolt-action antiques. Others modern British semi-automatics. And their pride and heaviest weapon, a .30 caliber machine gun just captured from the Nigerians. Much, in fact, of what the Biafrans are now using against the Nigerians they have taken from them. One military man up here told me, not totally as a joke, that Biafra now looks upon the Nigerian army as its quartermaster general. And if the Nigerian army runs on beer and bullets, the Biafran army lacks both, with ammunition constantly in critically short supply. These troops had advanced 6 miles in less than a week. Then, practically out of ammunition, were forced to stop on the road to Port Harcourt until more supplies trickled down to them. One of this army's other problems is staying large enough to continue the fight against Nigerians. When Biafra seceded in 1967, it had fewer than 1,000 men under arms, and those mostly officers and clerks. Now it has been built up to between 45 and 60,000. The exact number, a military secret. Volunteers made the original army build-up easy. Now conscription of virtually all able-bodied young men is underway. And in a former school compound, we found recruits drilling, marching in the mud to the improbable tune of Margie. These new soldiers are also taught the rudiments of jungle warfare and ambush, to be used against an enemy which holds most of Biafra's major cities, several vital road links, but not too much of the countryside. The training is basic, but effective.
They're going to stab us right by the shoulder here, and we want to defend it. Go.
And here I met a young trooper, a very young trooper in the Biafran Army. How old are you?
I'm 10 years.
10 years old.
Yes.
Do you know why Biafra is fighting?
Biafra is fighting for survival.
Is it going to win?
Yes, sir.
His spirit, and that of this tattered army, driven by fear of genocide which may or may not lie ahead if they lose, plus what must be massive ineptitude on the part of the Nigerian army, is the most probable reason that this war of unequals now has gone into its third year.
Nigeria before the war had an army of just 6,000, and they were professionals, their officers trained by the British. They served with distinction as part of the UN force in the Congo. But then Biafra declared its secession, and all of the Igbo officers and men, some of the best, left to become the nucleus of Biafra's army. In just the past 2 years, Nigeria's army has exploded to 14 times its original size, to 85,000 men. Recruits who used to get 6 months of training now get a mere 6 weeks. They are volunteers, most of them illiterate, just out of the bush, with little sense of nationhood. Their leaders tell them that they are fighting for one Nigeria, but that does not, it cannot have the same urgency for them that mere survival has for the Biafran. A Nigerian soldier may volunteer because he needs a job, or because army life appeals to him as the good life. Besides his uniform and the prestige that goes with it, he gets a comfortable ration of beer and cigarettes. And the pay, at $40 a month, is not bad. His leaders are not aggressive. Most military observers credit what success the Nigerian army has had so far chiefly to their lopsided superiority in firepower furnished by the British and the Russians. It is said only half in jest. The Nigerian army has so much firepower that they use ammunition as a defoliant. Nigeria's planes, MiG-17s and Ilyushin bombers, were bought for cash from the Russians who want to get a political foothold here. Most of the planes are flown by Egyptians, who are characterized as wary of anti-aircraft fire, therefore less than enthusiastic about going after military targets. That, it is suggested, is one cause of the high civilian casualties in the air raids on Biafra. But the war has been bloody on both sides, and inept and unaggressive though they may be, the Nigerian army, in 2 years of sporadic fighting, has suffered heavily. They will not release official casualty figures, but an army doctor told me that 8,000 Nigerian soldiers have died, and perhaps another 25,000 have been wounded. The military has just 11 army doctors for its 85,000 men. A severe head or body wound in...
Joining us, this is Sunrise Daily News Analysis on Biafra Television. And of course, this moment we'll be going on a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Of corruption. Your Excellency, let me tell you a story that I was told when I was Minister for Roads and Public Works in my other early incarnation. This is a minister from Nigeria for Roads and Public Works who went on a tour to Malaysia. There, on invitation. So he was taken by his horse, taken around the country, shown the highways that they have constructed in Malaysia. And then in the evening, he was treated to dinner at the residence of that minister. There, he found a nice mansion, a swimming pool, and nice sofa sets, and dinner sets, so dinner. So he asked his host, how did you manage this house? The host took him to the balcony and showed him, look yonder. Do you see that highway there? Yes. 10% here. 2 years later, it was the turn of the Malaysian to pay a return visit. When he went to Nigeria, he was taken around the roads. You saw roads were potholed, some of them untarmacked, and very poor condition, very poor state of affairs. In the evening, he was taken to dinner, and he found a palatial mansion, Olympic-sized swimming pool. The sofa sets were imported from Britain. Most of the chinaware were golden. So he asked his host, how do you achieve all this? He took him to the balcony. And so, do you see that highway there? The Malaysian could see nothing. He was told 100.
Of course, we are talking about the importance of election boycotts. Why we must boycott the Nigerian election, the evil thing they call Nigeria. Because we are the indigenous people of Biafra, and we make bold to tell the world that we celebrate our identity. We love ourselves for who we are, and we can never deny our identity. And of course, we only say no to the evil thing they tagged us, to the evil lie. And of course, it came to a point where they now tagged us terrorists for being the indigenous people, for coming up to say that we are the indigenous people of Biafra. The evil government of Nigeria have actually done everything to make sure that we are oppressed and suppressed, and of course, that we live in depression and die in depression. And of course, we have been marginalized. We have been treated as animals. In fact, being a Nigerian, you calling us a Nigerian is making us live as something less than a human being. It's better treated as an animal. And of course, that is actually what has been happening. And that is why we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we have insisted that we cannot accept the evil thing. We cannot accept the lie. We cannot accept the tag on our head, the terrorist tag. We cannot accept the humiliation. We cannot accept the dehumanization. We have risen. Of course, when we say we have risen, of course, according to our leader, Biafra has risen never to fall again. We give thanks to Chukwuka for Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. Of course, we are talking about restoration of Biafra. We are talking about importance of election boycott. In everything, what we want to achieve is that Biafra has to be restored. And because Biafra has to be restored, we have to say goodbye to everything that has to do with Nigeria. We have to boycott, and that is the agenda that has been set by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, by IPOB leadership, of course, by the people, because we are talking about IPOB. IPOB is the indigenous people of Biafra. You are talking about the people in Biafra land. You are talking about IPOB family members, and we are led by a leader sent to us by Chukwuka, the chosen one, the one that have been sent in this generation, because there's something that has been going on. There is an evil that has been going on. And of course, since the marginalization, since the colonization, since the amalgamation of the evil thing they call Nigeria, our people have always been subjugated to the evil thing. So that is why today we are talking about a restoration project. We are talking about a restoration agenda. We are talking about a leadership that have come to say, yes, we the indigenous people of Biafra, we have right to live. We have right to self-determination. Self-determination is not called for war. A referendum doesn't mean war, and of course, we want to get ourselves back to who we used to be. We want to regain our identity. We want to regain our land. We want to regain everything that makes us human. We want to be human at least once again, because living in the evil thing they call Nigeria is like not being a human being. It's like being an animal. Of course, in Nigeria, we are better than human beings. We know that when you look at the evil thing called Nigeria, cows have been treated better than human beings. And of course, cows, we are protected. The protection that we are supposed to be given to human beings, the protections that individuals should have enjoyed, cows are the ones receiving those protections. So that is why, of course, we knew that last year Nigeria, of course, was tagged a cow colony. We talk about cow colonies, where it became a cow republic. And of course, we saw cows taking over the runways of airports. We saw cows taking over our schools. We saw cows taking over our farmlands everywhere. So cows were treated better than human beings. And of course, that is what Nigeria means. So to be in Nigeria is to live a lesser life than a cow. Human beings, we are supposed to be protected. Lives, we are supposed to be protected if Nigeria was a country. But because Nigeria is not a country, we have the indigenous people of Biafra, we have to regain our identity. And that is what we do when we say election boycott. To boycott election, the evil election in Nigeria, means to sit at home on election day, because that is the agenda that has been set by the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra. Said on election day, all we need to do is, yes, sit at home. You just need to stay in your home, reject the evil thing, and of course do it in a very simple way. The simplest thing you can do on the election day is to sit in your house. And then when you sit in your house, you have simply said goodbye. You have simply refused to give your mandate for this evil thing that was created without your consent. Because when we talk about Nigeria, we are talking about a country that was created without your consent, without the consent of our ancestors. Somebody just woke up from the one side of the bed, but of course he on a bed of fantasy, and he was enjoying something, and he woke up with Lugard and Flora Shaw, and he said, well, let's call this place Nigeria. And now, of course, they sat in their bedroom and named you Nigeria. And that is how you took the evil thing, the curse in a bedroom, from a bedroom by a man and a woman, and you have been living as with that evil thing, with that curse, and that is why things can never work. So for that reason, we have to boycott, because Nigeria is not a country. You thinking you are living in a country, you are just living a false life, and that is why things has never worked since 100 years. It is not working now, and it's not going to work. So we, the indigenous people of Biafra, have suffered all the pains, have suffered all the trauma, have suffered all the challenges. We have seen everything that have taken place, and of course, before our very eyes, our people have been killed, our people have been maimed, and of course, we talk about the genocide that have taken place. There is no evil on earth that has never happened to us. Everything on earth has happened to us. In the past 100 years, we have lived as cursed people. We have lived as condemned people. We have lived a life that is not worth of being called a human being, and everything has happened to us, and it has happened until we have a savior. And today, that is why we talk about election boycott. And to boycott means to regain your consciousness, is to regain your identity, is to get back to who you used to be, is to come back alive and become human again after the curse, after the enchantment from the Lugard and Flora Shaw. So that is why when we talk about election boycott, we are talking about a system where you come back and regain your consciousness, and you do that by sitting at home. So on February 16th is the date. Of course, that is the real day that have been chosen, and of course, by the evil people, that the same people, they want to renew the evil thing they call Nigeria that was created 100 years ago. They want to renew the lie. They want to renew it, and that is why the leadership has also chosen that day. Said, no, we are not going to participate. We are simply going to sit at home and, of course, enjoy an Ofokazi, and that is what we are going to do that day. We are going to be celebrating why they are planning evil, why they continue to plan their evil, how to renew the curse. We are going to simply sit in our house and enjoy our Ofokazi, and while we enjoy it, we say goodbye to the evil thing called Nigeria. We say goodbye to the curse of Lord Lugard. We say goodbye to marginalization. We say goodbye to the killings, and of course, we welcome Biafra. So in election boycott, we are simply going to welcome Biafra. We are simply going to say goodbye to Nigeria. We are simply going to end the evil thing, and of course, we are going to regain our life. We are going to be better than the cows. We are going to be better than the animals, and of course, we are going to come back and with our human consciousness. So election boycott is the only solution. Election boycott is the only way to regain and redeem your image, because you as a human being have been treated as an animal. You have no life in you. Of course, being called a Nigerian, everything has proven it. Just everything. If you can't find a food in your table, if you cannot do a business and make profit, if you cannot have infrastructure in your land, if you don't have hospitals, because you are not treated as a human being. And that is why 16th September is the day that curse is supposed to be broken. It's going to be broken, and we, the indigenous people of Biafra, are going to, of course, lead the way and show the world how it is done. And of course, we regain our identity, and Biafra will be restored before our very eyes.
Okay, thank you very much. In as much as we have something to gain through this election boycott, it means the Nigerian government have something to lose. So what is it they've got to lose if we boycott the election?
Yes, when you talk about what we have got to gain, we have everything to gain, because we regain our human consciousness. But the Nigerian government now lose the grip over us. Because, you see, a slave, most times you discover that at the end of slave trade, remember that there was a time where people have right to own slaves. as human, you buy human being and he become your slave for life. And that is the ideology, that is the mentality for which Nigeria was created. Nigeria was created to enslave you, and of course to renew the slave trade, because you know while the slave trade was ending, we knew that the British government was at the forefront to stop slave trade. They fought actually to stop the slave trade, and of course while it stopped, we have a system where you talk about colonization, and before we knew what was happening, there was a new system of enslaving people, and what you now have as Nigeria is an experiment of it, and Nigeria became the giant of Africa, and that is why Africa became slave again to the world. So Nigeria will lose the grip, because there is a law that makes it possible that once the slave trade has ended, every human being now have the right to be free. But you still know that there are people that enjoyed slavery. They like to be with the masters and all that. So for that reason, the masters will come and say, no, he refused to go, he loves me. And you know that is the language that the Nigerian government have been using. So that is why all the time you see them coming up and say, we love each other. You know that is the language. Meaning that you as a slave, you love your master. That is what it means, and that is what happened at the end of slave trade. Remember that when slave trade ended, you now had the right to go, and of course if your master refused to let you go, you now had the power to go to court. But you see, the slave masters adopted another approach, and what were they doing? They will say no. The slave will announce that, yes, I love my master. And the master had control, continued to control, and that is the evil thing that Nigeria want to project. That is why they keep talking about love. They tell you that the Igbos, remember all the time BBC would always project this evil image. They will come and tell you that, yes, the Hausa man, the Fulani man that is killing you and of course taking over your cows, they will go to one remote community and tell you that, see, the Hausa man and the Igbo man, they are living in love and they are living together and they love each other. That is the language they want to. That is to tell you that they are saying that we, the indigenous people of Biafra, don't even want to leave Nigeria, that we love Nigeria. And that is why you see when they make a statement through Ohaneze Ndigbo, through the evil governors, that is the language they want to project, that we love the Hausa Fulanis, that we love their cows, that we love the cow colony. And that is why what the Nigerian government will lose when we boycott the election, we will now expose them to the international community. That is the last day to expose the lies. Because all the while they said, no, we are the one that even want Nigeria, we don't want to. That is the language that's what they have been going to tell the international community. And that is why you see the international community will always come here and say, oh, because they love themselves, let the indigenous people solve the problem. Remember that the French president came to the evil contraction and he said, you people have a problem, it is you that will solve the problem. And the Nigerian government have gone to the international community and said, no, we have, there's no problem, we love each other, the Igbos love us and we love them and all that, and we have to live together. And when the world now look at the situation, they say, okay, let the people stand up and take what belongs to them. And that is the importance of election boycott. That is what Nigeria will lose. They will lose that grip of that used to have, because that day the whole world will be watching what is going to happen. And because the whole world is going to watch what is happening on the 16th, that is actually the real day that when you sit at home, you now expose the lies once and for all, and the lies are exposed to the international community. The lies are exposed to the whole world that we don't love this evil thing they call Nigeria. We are not Nigerians. We are the indigenous people of Biafra. And once you expose that lies, you have crippled Nigeria. You know, it sounds very simple. It sounds very, very simple. But Nigeria knew what it is. Those evil people, those cabals and the Fulani cabals know what it means. And that is why when you say election boycott, they do everything to stop it, because they know what is going to happen. It will simply end the slave trade. When you're talking about the end of slave trade, because people thought slave trade ended a long time ago. No, Nigeria, anybody in Nigeria is still a slave to the British government, is still a slave to the Fulanis. And of course, when we say election boycott, that is the end, the final collapse of slave trade, and that is the beginning of your freedom. At least we will say no to evil Nigeria, and they will lose the grip over us and will become free once and for all.
Okay, thank you very much. So far, how much do you think the people have been made aware?
Well, you see, their circumstances have touched the people. And of course, through what we are doing, the indigenous people of Biafra, there is no kind of evangelism we have not done. We are on air today talking, and of course, we have gone on the streets. You know, all the while, why did they arrest the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra? Why did they incarcerate him in Kuje prison? Why did he spend more than 2 years there? It was because he was evangelizing. He was creating awareness. It's all about awareness. All we have been doing all the while is creating awareness, telling them that we must be free. Talking about the evil thing they call Nigeria, exposing the lies. So the awareness have been created all the while, and today you can now see, even in the north, so the northerners themselves are aware of what is happening, and that is why you see them for the first time beginning to reject the evil thing they call Nigeria. There are so many people, forget what you see them doing in the media, so forget what the cabals are doing. The real people, the indigenous people, are awake. Look at what is happening in the Middle Belt. Apart from the evangelism, apart from the awareness that have been created by the indigenous people of Biafra, circumstances have taught the people a lesson. And of course, in the past, people never knew why what happened to them happened to them. And it took the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra to educate them, to let them understand why what is happening to them is happening to them. Because people that died in the Middle Belt, of course, we knew that in the media it was always reported, the Gota media, the Nigerian Gota media, and the British and all the international media, we are reporting communal conflict, communal crisis, and they never talked about the Islamization agenda. It took the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra to say this is an Islamization agenda. And of course, before you knew what is happening, you saw what happened in the Middle Belt, you saw what happened in Jos and Plateau and Benue, and it took to the point that the president of the United States of America now understood that there is a horrible killing of Christians. If not the awareness that has been created by the indigenous people of Biafra, the world will not know that the killings have been so horrible. That was not the first time, because the massacre has been on before 1966. They have been killing us. That is how they have continued, because 1804 jihad continued, and of course they have been killing us. But it took the awareness that has been created by the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra to attract the United States of America to address the killing of Christians. And of course, the president of the United States now looked at it and said the killing of Christians is horrible. It has been there, they have been killing us. But he now acknowledges it's horrible. That tells you that the world are aware. Also, the people are now aware why they are dying. And of course, when you look at what is happening in the Middle Belt, listen to the media, listen to what they say in the social media, you will now discover that so many of them are awake. In as much as you still have the evil cabals, you still have the slaves, those executive slaves, those that have been bought over, those that have been paid heavily by the British and of course the Fulani cabals to keep running their affairs, because you know they are he that pays the piper, the tasty tune. But the bulk of the people actually know what is happening to them, and that is why today awareness is at the highest level. People get to know, go to the drinking bars, you see army there, you see police, you see they are sending DSS. Why? So that people will no longer talk about it. But even when in their whispers, even in social media, people talk about it, because everybody are awake. Ordinary man in the streets are awake. We know what is happening. So it's no longer a thing of hide and seek. It is being aired every day in Radio Biafra London. People talk about it, and you cannot shut them up again, because it's about educating the people on the truth, on why they are going through what they are going through. That is why today the government of the evil government of Nigeria, the evil cabals running Nigeria, are taking note, and that is why they tagged us terrorists. They felt we are terrorizing them by talking about the truth, by saying the truth, because how dare you look at an armless people, a people without guns and bullets, and you tag them terrorists? Because what we are doing, the awareness we are creating is terrorizing them, has become a problem to them. And of course, because we expose them, we expose the truth, the lies, and of course bring the truth to the table, it became a terror. It terrorized them. They felt terrorized because they see that their end has come, their mission has come, the end of their mission has come. So the people are actually awake. The people are aware. You see, that's why they say when we talk about fight for freedom, that is actually where the fight is. It is fought on the media. It is fought on the social media. Why? Because the people has to be educated. And today I can boldly tell you that there's anybody who you see, it's only when those who have dead conscience that doesn't understand what is happening, because situations have taught you, the killings in the evil contraction, the marginalization, the social system that have been destroyed, everything that have been destroyed is a lesson enough. And of course, we have pointed it clearly that this is actually the reason why you are dying. This is actually the reason why you cannot have a good hospital. And today, the people are actually awake. And that is why you see everybody, when you say sit at home, everybody will sit at home. When we say we'll go and protest in the streets, don't you see protests going on all over? Apart from Biafra land, even in Lagos, don't you see that they are now chasing politicians when they come to campaign as usual? It's no longer a business as usual. In Lagos, most of the times, ordinary people take to the streets and get angry with politicians. Sometimes they chase them away. In the north, you see them chasing the president away from campaign ground. So why are they doing it? Because the people are now aware of their situation. So it is no longer business as usual. Why they use the show of force, why they use their heavy bullets, why they use their AK-47, the people actually are awake. And that is the most important thing, that the people are aware of their condition. So that is the work of the indigenous people of Biafra. And of course, kudos must be given to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu for creating this great awakening.
Okay, thank you very much. Kudos to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. The indigenous people of Biafra, we are formidable because we have no other hope if not Biafra restoration, and that we must get. It's very, very important. Okay, since the reappearance of our leader, we've been talking about the man in Aso Rock. We're talking about Jubril exposing the man in Aso Rock, and it seems you know, it seems everywhere or everyone is already aware, but they do not care. You still see massive you still see people going about talking about APC, talking about Buhari, but that's not the fact. That's not the point. When we talk about the election boycotts, we know that the APC, which is the man in Aso Rock, still have the power. So don't you think it's going to pave way for him to remain there, since Atiku and Obi are not going to get much supporters, because as far as Biafra land is concerned, we are not voting?
Well, you see, when you look at Aso Rock, look at the cabals running Aso Rock, look at the Sharia government, because it is better called the Sharia government, because what you have today is a Sharia government. They have actually consulted a government. And you look at the British Business Center. These are the things you must look at very well, because when you look at the president, anybody can actually be the president of Nigeria. That is one thing people don't understand. They can even place a dog there. They can even place a cat there. And of course, the owners of the business know what they want. They know how, all they want is when they make instruction, when they make rules. And of course, anybody there passes the rules, the instruction out. So anybody can actually be there. Anybody can be employed to do the thing. And of course, they dress it in a democratic way. That is actually where, of course, why we expose the lies, why we do what we are doing. Because if they had actually come out and say, okay, name it the way it is, this is our business, and they are running a business, we will not have a problem with them. We allow them run their business. But they came and said they are practicing democracy, and there's nothing democratic about it. There's no evidence that there's democracy in West Africa they call Nigeria. There's no evidence. So see, when you look at what is happening, the power of the man in Aso Rock or anybody occupying that seat, whether you are talking about Atiku winning or losing, that is not our problem. Because if it takes Atiku to be there, it doesn't make any, in fact, it will make things worse for the evil thing. Because you look at the evil thing called Nigeria. Bring an angel, bring a virgin angel and place on the seat in Aso Rock. It will remain the same. Don't you see, even in Biafra land, don't you even see that the governors are still dancing to the tune of the owners of the business? So it's about the British Business Center. It's about the evil cabals. It is about Sharia. So it's not about anybody occupying that seat. So it is not our business. When we are boycotting the election, we are not boycotting it because of anybody in Aso Rock occupying Aso Rock. No, that is not our real focus. Our real focus is that we want to reject that evil thing called Nigeria. We want to reject the British Business Center called Nigeria. We want to reject the evil name they have given to us. We want to reject the curse. We want to break the chains. And we do it in a very simple way. Of course, refusing to give them the mandate to run it. Because that is what they simply want to show the international community. They want to show the international community that, see, we voted and that we love to be in Nigeria, we love to be called Nigeria. And that is what they actually want. And that is the only reason why you see Atiku there. Atiku is not coming because they know that Atiku will never, don't you see that the whole foundations, in December, our leader even made it clear that the elections has already been rigged. And the evil government you are talking about is even working that, yes, after the election day, that they are going to face tribunals. He has even made arrangement for that. So the election has already been rigged. And of course, earlier we knew that Atiku only came to persuade you, to make you feel that you have a country, to preach to you like the way they preach in the church, to convince you to vote. That is actually why Atiku came. So it's not about who is occupying it. They can choose Atiku, they can choose Kwankwaso, they can choose anybody in the north and place on that seat. It's not important to us. So whether it is paving way for APC, whether it is paving way for PDP, we are not interested in Nigerian politics. We are here to restore Biafra. And what is important to us is what is going to happen to us when we boycott the election. We will simply restore Biafra, and that is what we want. So if we boycotted the election and anybody occupy the seat in the evil contraction called Nigeria, so it's not our business. What is our business is that we have said no to the evil thing called Nigeria by boycotting the election, by sitting at home, and of course getting Biafra restored.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, yesterday the man in Nasarawa visited Aba, and of course we saw some pictures. Some people came out to welcome him, and you know, don't you think there are still people who believe in him here in Biafra land?
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Do you know that if you start a business, you can employ people from all over the world and run that business once you have the money? So it's not about believing in him. They are simply, you see people, and of course you knew that in the evil thing called Nigeria, they have always used thugs. They have always used paid enough, they have enough slaves. You need to understand that. And of course, to do their business, but the bulk of the people who don't know that the man in Nasarawa, the evil thing called Nigeria, is not working. So when you look at what happened in Aba, you look at a situation where they have been paying people, and of course they pay enough thugs in Nigeria. Don't you see what happened in Ekiti? Don't you see what happened in Osun? Don't you see what happened in Edo? These are evidences that since what they call democracy in the evil contraction is just paying enough thugs during election time, and of course position them and use them during campaign, use them during the election, and of course steal the ballot papers, and of course make you stand on the sun, rain and sun, and after the whole day you waste your energy because the thugs will kill you. They will take away the ballot papers, and at the end of the day your mandate will be stolen. So he coming in Aba and you seeing some people with him, they are paying enough people. And of course, if you want to recruit, just place an advertisement. People will come and work for you. That is what it means. So they even go to the point of going to Niger, going to Sudan. They employ people everywhere. And of course, there's an airway today. There's of course a route to Kano today.
They import people. But don't you think importing people, because according to what you said earlier, we are sitting at home for the world to observe that no election happened. We did not come out to vote, and by the time they import these people and they come and occupy the places, and you know, even when the people from the international community come to see, there will see a lot of people casting their votes. There will be a lot of people out there casting their votes. What does this speak of?
See,
how do we look at it, please?
There's a difference between campaign, presidential campaign, and presidential election.
No, even during the election in Anambra State, we knew that they imported some people, and if this time around they plan to intensify it or to increase the number of people that will be imported, and it's going to speak a whole lot.
You see, the international community and we, the indigenous people of Biafra, are observing everything. First thing first, while during Anambra election, we also saw how they imported the 3% that we saw. Yes, 3% versus how many people? We know the population of the evil contraction called Nigeria. When you have a population of 200 million people, and now they imported, how many actually are they going to import? That is why I tell you there's a difference between campaign and election. Because during campaign, they can actually gather all the people from the imported, and they are using for the purpose, pay them all the money, and of course take them to campaign grounds, and of course get their campaigns. But during election, it's not going to be, because when you are bringing 200 million people, you are going to notice, everybody will notice that something actually happened. Actually, where are they bringing 200 million people? They are bringing people from Niger. What is the population of Niger? And of course, to which states? You know, they have concentrations. What is important is that they want to rig the election. And of course, to us, we want to boycott the election. And of course, in Biafra land, we, the indigenous people of Biafra, understand our community. And of course, before the election day, that is why we monitor every step that we are taking. We monitor every situation. That day, of course, during when you talk about the days, the days when they were importing Fulani herdsmen to Biafra land, we used to take pictures of them. When you see them coming with their trailer, you see them offloading human beings. We take pictures of them, of course, noting how they are coming. So these are things, when we monitor them, when we see things happening, we monitor them, and of course we bring those evidences out, because those are the things that but there is no way they are going to import enough people to equate 200 million people. That is rest, because when you're talking about those who appear in campaign grounds, yes, they can gather people, buy enough people on campaign grounds. But when you're talking about election, you're going to look at the population. So, in spite of all they did to import people during Anambra election, they could only bring 3%, and of course, it's an insignificant number. When you are talking about 3% versus the rest of the people, it's insignificant. So, no matter how many people they are importing from Niger and all over West Africa, it's never going to, of course, equate to what the indigenous people of Biafra are doing. We are simply going to cripple not just a state this time around. We are talking about the entire Biafra land. And of course, that is what you are going to observe that day. So you are going to see a situation where we understand our land, we understand the situation, and when we say we are sitting at home, we know those who are sitting at home, and we know when strangers are trooping into our land. So these are things, we observe them, and we see it happen before our very eyes, that day election boycott is the only solution to the evil thing, to end the evil thing they call Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's very important we boycott the election. But I still believe there are people who are not yet aware of this election boycott. There are still places, you know. I can cite my place, for example. I traveled a few weeks back and I saw women gathered and they dressed up in their attires are going to welcome the PDP presidential candidate. And you know, when I interviewed them, I found out that these women were going there for nothing. They said the last time they went there, they got 200 naira each person. The other one said they got 300 naira the previous time. And, you know, I was preaching Biafra to them. I found out that so many of them are not yet aware of what is happening. To some of them who are aware, they think IPOB is also a political movement. And she said, yes, if you people give us higher money, we will join you people's own. And but we will have to join those who are giving us the little money we have now. You know, I shed tears. You can imagine where women are selling their children's destiny for as little as 300 naira. Yes. So who should they blame here?
You see, when you talk about awareness being created, enough awareness have been created and is still being created. You see, anybody who is telling you that is not aware is simply not telling himself the truth, because we all live in this land. If nothing had created the awareness, Fulani is the Mezation agenda. The Fulani herdsmen actually created the awareness.
But they are aware that things are not moving right. But talking about election boycott, believe you me, there are people who are yet to know what election boycott, they are yet to even hear the word boycott. Well, not to talk about telling them, okay, on this day we are going to sit at home. There are people who are not yet aware. And we have less than 3 weeks. We have 2 weeks and I think 4 days to go.
Now, that is the work that is left between you and me. Because when we are talking about these villages, when we are talking about these women, most of them are our mothers. They are our sisters. They are our aunties. They are our cousins. They are from our homes. So a good number of us, you know, when you look at the population, you look at the cities being occupied, dense populated area, like you talk about the urban areas, you see how dense the population is. A good number of us have left our fathers and mothers at home. That is the work that is left for us. And of course, within this period of time, we are going to do massive phone calls. Because it has come to a time when it's not just about going for street protests, going for street evangelism. Yes, we can do all that. But you see, this time around, we have a duty. We owe ourselves duties. We have to do what is called massive phone calls. Call your father, call your mother. Because it's no longer a time waiting for somebody telling you, the indigenous people of Biafra, go to who are the indigenous people of Biafra? All of us. Because when you're talking about IPOB, it means the indigenous people of Biafra. We have family members. And when we talk about family members, it traces our roots back to the village. You are in the city. You are in Aba. You are in Omahia. You are in Iguacha. You are in Akwa Ibom. You are everywhere.
In diaspora.
Call your people at home. Simple. When you do a massive phone call, and of course you exhaust all the numbers in your line, you call everybody in your phone book, you call all the people at home. There is no way, you know, information. Once you want, did you remember when they talk about monkeypox? Within a day, the news spread all over, and of course you saw the entire Biafra land, the whole schools were shut down. Did you see how it spread? Because we told them that life was at stake. They actually came to kill us with the syringe. And as soon as it was made public, you know it, that yes, any school they attempted, the people refused. Why? Because we made phone calls. People called their families. So it is very, very important. Information spread like wildfire, and of course within a day, everybody everywhere have had the information, have got the information. So all we need to do is to make our assurance doubly sure. We just need to make massive phone calls, because that is the simplest way of making evangelism now. Of course, making it public, making it known. And one woman in a community is able to spread the news to all over the communities. We know that yes, our problem is not about telling them about election boycott. Our problem is that there are those saboteurs in our land. The greatest challenge we, the indigenous people of Biafra, have always faced since 1967 up until now is the problem of sabotage. So that is the greatest problem. It's not that people are not aware. It's because there are those who are deceiving them. That when we have talked about election boycott, we talk about the saboteurs in the land. We talk about those who will tell them not to listen to IPOB. Those of them who will tell them to obtain PVC. That is where the problem is. So the problem is not actually that. But you see, we need to intensify our efforts. Call your people at home. Make massive phone calls. Make sure that you send text messages. Make your calls. Load your... Within a week, within the next 1 week, everybody have had it. Of course, let's not assume that everybody have had. Just take it as a responsibility that nobody has heard about it, and you want everybody to hear it. And as an individual, you load enough money in your phone and start making calls. By the time you have done that, you have spread the news, and that is the only way we can do it, because information, of course, spreads faster than anything. That is to say, we all have to do the job. All hands have to be on deck. It is not only to be left for the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra. A decision has been taken by the leadership, but we, the indigenous people, have our duties to do. We are family members. We need to call our family and pass the information to them. And of course, by doing that, everybody will be aware. An election boycott will be 100% success.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we are no longer talking about only the election boycott. The indigenous people of Biafra has announced that that same day is going to be a day for referendum. What's your take on that?
Yes, that is the moment we have all been waiting for. You see, everything that we have been demanding, everything we have been asking, and all the questions we have been asking is about the referendum, because that is the benchmark. That is actually the center of the whole struggle. That is actually the moment we all have been waiting for. And of course, there's jubilation, because we are happy that at the end of the day, the date has been fixed. Because that has always been the challenge. That has always been the problem. We have always talked about the date. Should it come before or after the election? Should it be an election? So many people. And of course, the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra, being sensitive to the whole situation, have chosen that day. So that is the best thing that has happened to us. That at the end of the day, after all the whole consultation, the date has been chosen. So it is a good news. And of course, it's a welcome development. We appreciate it. And of course, for once, we can be confident that we are sure that Biafra referendum is to be held on a certain day, which is the 16th of February 2016, the same day for the presidential election. So that is the moment we have been waiting for. That is the day we have been waiting for. And of course, we are doing it, celebrating it with Ofokazi. And of course, while eating Ofokazi, you simply welcome Biafra in your home. That is very simple. And of course, it's a welcome development.
Okay, in a nutshell, can you explain how internationally a referendum ought to be?
Well,
how is it to be conducted?
You see, this is the people's referendum.
Okay.
And you are the one inviting the international community and tell them what you want to do. This is the people's referendum. And of course, this is the approach we have chosen as the indigenous people of Biafra. So, our type of referendum, of course, based on the situations at hand, based on the conditions we found ourselves, based on, so a lot of consultation have gone on. And of course, we remember that the last time our leader talked to us, he talked about consultations. He said why we didn't have our referendum last year was because consultations were going on, because we have the greatest challenge, which are security issues. So you are looking at how how a referendum should be conducted. Yes, it's about voting or not to vote. It's about to be or not to be. It's about yes and no. That is what it simply means. So whether you are voting, whether you are casting a vote, whether you are using a boycott or whatever, one thing is important is that you have to explain the process to those who are doing it, and of course to the international community. So we have adopted election boycott, the sit at home, as to be the Biafra referendum. Of course, all we are doing is to explain that is how we want it, because it is the people's referendum. All that the international community will be doing is just to come and observe how we are doing it. That is the approach. And of course, we know that people are used to ballot papers. People are using, you talk about people voting all the time, electronic ways, and of course, sometimes in Europe, advanced countries, they do it electronically. And of course, it's easier because of the technological advancement in the world. But here, we look at what we have, what is obtainable, what is happening in naval contraction, and of course, the system. We look at security issues. So the leadership, after due consultations, have chosen the election boycott, have chosen that day for the presidential election, and we have chosen that it's going to be a sit at home. Simple. So that is our position. The international community, all their duty is to monitor how we go about it, and of course explaining to them, explaining to the people, explaining that is the bulk of where the bulk of the work is. That is the standard we have chosen, and that becomes an international standard for us. So our own method is to sit at home on the presidential day.
Are you trying to say there is nothing like a casting of votes, like using the voter's card to vote?
The approach that has been chosen by the indigenous people of Biafra, except maybe they will communicate in the as time goes on, because the leadership have simply made it clear that on the 16th February, first is election boycott. Every indigenous people family member of the indigenous people of Biafra have to sit at home. That is the first step. So we must know that we are sitting at home. There's going to be election boycott. We are not going to vote in Nigerian election. So whether we are using our ballot paper or not will be communicated to us. That for now, we should be rest assured that nobody should go out to vote in Nigerian election. We are choosing election boycotts. And of course, as it stands, what I understand by it is that on that day, our election boycott is what will become our referendum. So we simply sit at home, and I don't think we are using any ballot paper, any card to vote. So for now, it has not been communicated, but in the due course, the clarity, the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra would have to clear everything. But what is important to us is that that day is a sit at home. You are not going out to vote in any Nigerian election. So don't let anybody tell you that when you are eat your fokazi and enjoy it. And of course, while you are doing that, you
previously, that was last year, mid last year, or thereabout, there was an announcement that over 40 million ballot papers had been produced.
Exactly.
And now you are trying to say we may not be needing the ballot papers again. How do you explain this?
Yes, you see, the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra are sensitive to the situation at hand.
Okay.
And of course, sensitive to the life of the people. Remember, we are fighting to live. The Nigerian government and of course those who are supporting them is just about committing genocide. You know, that is actually what we are fighting to stop. That they want to wipe out the indigenous people of Biafra. That is what we are fighting to stop. We want to end the killings. We want to. So it's not about our resources, because this time around there's a broad objective. Remember that we are working with objectives. We are working with broad objectives, and of course with midterm objective and specific objectives. At this time, after due consultation, yes, the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra have printed 40 million, I don't know if it has been completed, but it was announced that 40 million ballot papers were being printed for Biafra referendum. And of course, when the leadership said it is being printed, that was the truth. But it's not about the printing of the ballot papers. It's about the life of the indigenous people of Biafra. Because Nigeria have rejected, remember all the while we asked them for the date for Biafra referendum, and of course, having consulted those who matter in the world, I believe that there is something, there's a reason why the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra have chosen the election, presidential election day, because there have been due consultations. Remember that our leader said consultation, that yes, that why the referendum did not take place last year was because consultations were not conclusive. So it was because of these issues. We look at the security of lives. So 40 million ballot papers are very important to us. And of course, because they have been printed, they were supposed to be used. But the life of the people who are going to use it is more important than the ballot paper. We must have it at the back of our mind. Because we actually last year hoped for a referendum, and of course anticipated a referendum, expected the day for the referendum. But after all the consultation, after the consultation, it didn't take place last year because we saw this. We were not to be told. We saw the killings that were going on. We saw it happening in the Middle Belt. We saw the Fulani herdsmen. We saw them deploying soldiers in our land. We saw all the happenings. We saw them killing us, and we saw it happening in broad daylight. So these are not things that we are told of. These are things we have experienced. So the leadership actually have looked at it. I'm sure that they have checked it, and not just counting the cost of the ballot paper. We need to count the life, because we are here to stop the genocide. We are here to stop the killings. That is primarily what we want to do, and we have to do it with everything in us. And that is why I appreciate the method that have been adopted by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, by the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra, and of course accepted by the people, that on the presidential election day it's going to be that way. So the 40 million ballot papers printed, yes, good, but what is more important to us is the life of every Biafran, not just the resources that have been committed to it.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, still last year, the deputy leader of indigenous people of Biafra and other principal officers visited the United Nations, where they came out with smiles and, of course, telling us that there is hope and that the United Nations is going to join hands to see that we are freed, and, of course, that our referendum is going to be one accepted by the international communities and United Nations. The United Nations conducted referendum. So now, does it mean the United Nations are no longer going to be part of it, or that they failed? You know, I think there should be an explanation to this.
Yes, you see, explanations. There are things that you must understand. The leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra, we are fighting for peace. The reason why we have to go through all we are going through is because we are involved in a peaceful approach. That the Nigerian system have rejected peace, and they have rejected it at all levels, to the point that the international community was now advising the people to take responsibility, because the Nigerian government have rejected peace. You know, there are indications. Actually, we are not at the, personally, I wasn't at those top meetings. I wasn't at those top diplomatic meetings. I wouldn't know what happened indoors. But look at this situation at hand. Look at what we see openly. What we see a situation where the Nigerian system, the Nigerian government, continued to reject that peaceful move by the indigenous people. Why have we been going around the world?
Sorry, if they reject it, don't you think the United Nations, the ECOWAS, the EU have the power to make them accept what is acceptable internationally?
Well, you see, there is a law of sovereignty. You need to understand the law of sovereignty.
But they are a member state to these organizations.
Yes, and that is why you see, like we have to exhaust all the peaceful approach this time around. Now, the indigenous people solving their problems. Remember that there are consultations. Now you cannot, we don't actually know all the consultation that took place before this step was chosen. Okay. Now the United Nations compelling Nigeria, yes, there are a lot of consultation, but we don't actually know what, I keep saying it, we don't actually know what happened on the ground. We know what is open to us, like the election boycott and the date for Biafra referendum being announced. And the United Nations also watching, you know, they are the watchdogs. We are talking about 3 nations that make up the evil contraction called Nigeria here. There are the Yorubas, there are the Hausa Fulanis, and we the indigenous people of Biafra. And remember that there was a time when you talk about delegates coming from the world bodies. And when they come, at the end of the day, they will tell you that, yes, the Nigerian government have actually promised so many things. That is one thing you must understand. They keep making promises, and none of the promises they don't fulfill. All the promises they make, they don't fulfill any of them. So, you see, it is a situation where they tell you the world, you know that Nigeria and their lies. So we, the indigenous people of Biafra, are always holding the United Nations responsible to the world body. And when they are lying to the world body, they are using the likes of the governors you think you have, the Igbo politicians, and of course they cook up the stories, the lies, and they push out to the international community. And of course you don't know all those lies that have been told on the ground that the indigenous people of Biafra are working hard to stop. So when you see that the United Nations, United Nations last year came, and of course they said the Nigerian government has to address the issues. The French president also came down and said the indigenous people have to solve the problem. There's a reason for it, because the Nigerian government is known for peddling lies. They go to the international community and they tell you that the only problem they have is Boko Haram, and they are fighting it. But instead of fighting Boko Haram, they are empowering Boko Haram. So that is the situation where you have the lying government of Nigeria, the greatest lying government that have ever been on earth. So the United Nations actually have power to take this, but it also takes the indigenous people, and that is why all the world, you see them laughing and laughing at the people, said you have the right, you have the power, and of course they are waiting. When are they waiting? On the presidential itself. Why is it that the leadership of the indigenous people have chosen that day? Because they are aware of the lies at the international level. They are aware of what the Nigerian system have peddled there, and that is why the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra wants to expose Nigeria once and for all because of their lies. So it's not that the United Nations don't have power. You know, they are watchdogs. They are watching these three nations. That is it. So they tell you, they go to the international community and tell you that we love ourselves. Is it not the lies that have been peddling against us? They tell you that the Igbos that we are the one that don't want to leave Nigeria. That's what they say. And then they will tell you, yeah, because of our business in Lagos, because of our houses in Kaduna, because that is what they would tell you. And of course, they keep lying. But we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we said, house or no house in Lagos, we want Biafra. So the Nigerian system have been lying. And of course, you can see a system where they peddle lies at the international level and deceive the United Nations. And of course, because the indigenous people don't react, the United Nations will accept the lies. So the only way to expose them is to do it on that election day. And that day, the whole world will be watching. And that is why it is so important. The most important thing we do is to do the simplest thing that the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra have asked us to do, to sit at home. And while we sit at home, our silence will speak louder in the world. So it's about the lies in Nigeria and the truths that we, the indigenous people of Biafra, stand to project.
All right, thank you very much. At this moment, we'll be going on a break, and when we return, the lines will be open for you to call in and make your contributions. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Of corruption. Your Excellency, let me tell you a story. And I was told when I was Minister for Roads and Public Works in my other early incarnation. This is a minister from Nigeria for roads and public works who went on a tour to Malaysia. There on invitation. So he was taken by his horse, taken around the country, shown the highways that they have constructed in Malaysia. And then in the evening, he was treated to dinner at the residence of that minister. There, he found a nice mansion, a swimming pool, and nice sofa sets, and dinner sets. So had dinner. So he asked his host, how did you manage this house? The host took him to the balcony and showed him, look yonder. Do you see that highway there? Yes. 10% here. Two years later, it was the turn of the Malaysian to pay a return visit. When he went to Nigeria, he was taken around the roads. You saw roads were potholed, some of them untarmacked, and very poor condition, very poor state of affairs. In the evening, he was taken to dinner, and he found a palatial mansion, Olympic-sized swimming pool. The sofa sets were imported from Britain. Most of the chinaware were golden. So he asked his host, how do you achieve all this? He took him to the balcony. And so, do you see that highway there? The Malaysian could see nothing. He was told, 100% here. Of corruption. Your Excellency, let me tell you a story that I was told when I was Minister for Roads and Public Works in my other early incarnation. This is a minister from Nigeria for Roads and Public Works who went on a tour to Malaysia. There, on invitation. So he was taken by his horse, taken around the country, shown the highways that they have constructed in Malaysia. And then in the evening, he was treated to dinner at the residence of that minister. There, he found a nice mansion, a swimming pool, and nice sofa sets, and dinner sets. So at dinner, so he asked his host, "How did you manage this house?" The host took him to the balcony and showed him, "Look yonder. Do you see that highway there? Yes, 10% here." Two years later, it was the turn of the Malaysian to pay a return visit. When he went to Nigeria, he was taken around the roads. You saw roads were potholed, some of them untarmacked, and very poor condition, very poor state of affairs. In the evening, he was taken to dinner, and he found a palatial mansion, Olympic-sized swimming pool. The sofa sets were imported from Britain. Most of the chinaware were golden. So he asked his host, "How do you achieve all this?" He took him to the balcony. And so, "Do you see that highway there?" The Malaysian could see nothing. He was told, 100% here. Of corruption. Your Excellency, let me tell you a story that I was told when I was Minister for Roads and Public Works in my other early incarnation. This is a minister from Nigeria for Roads and Public Works who went on a tour to Malaysia. There, on invitation. So he was taken by his horse, taken around the country, shown the highways that they have constructed in Malaysia. And then in the evening, he was treated to dinner at the residence of that minister. There, he found a nice mansion, a swimming pool, and nice sofa sets, and dinner sets. So at dinner, so he asked his host, "How did you manage this house?" The host took him to the balcony and showed him, "Look yonder. Do you see that highway there? Yes, 10% here." Two years later, it was the turn of the Malaysian to pay a return visit. When he went to Nigeria, he was taken around the roads. You saw roads were potholed, some of them untarmacked, and very poor condition, very poor state of affairs. In the evening, he was taken to dinner, and he found a palatial mansion, Olympic-sized swimming pool. The sofa sets were imported from Britain. Most of the chinaware were golden. So he asked his host, "How do you achieve all this?" He took him to the balcony. And so, "Do you see that highway there?" The Malaysian could see nothing. He was told 100% here. Of corruption. Your Excellency, let me tell you a story.
On Biafra television. I am Ngozi Chukwu, and I have Mazi Bright Oriako with me here in the studio. Right now the lines are open for you to call in and make your contributions, whatever, be it your question or contribution or suggestion, they are welcome. Call us on Skype, call us on Facebook, call us on our direct phone line. They are there on the screen. Of course, you call, let's know what your take is. What do you think? Our WhatsApp line is there, our Skype is there, Facebook is there, and our direct phone line. We need to hear from you. Very, very important. Because we are looking at the imperativeness of the election boycott. How imperative it is to this struggle. What do we stand to gain? What do we stand to lose? Are there chances of IPOB losing? And of course, that question goes to you, Mazuriako. Are there chances? Do you think that there could by any means be a reason why IPOB must lose in this referendum?
How would indigenous people of Biafra lose? The indigenous people will never lose, because when we sat at home, we cripple Nigeria and nothing happens. So we will win at the end of the day. So the chances of losing is not there, because all the indigenous people of Biafra are saying with a loud voice. Remember, all that we have always asked for is the date for a referendum. And of course, in the previous days, we talk about our sit-at-homes. You just look at the sit-at-homes that we have observed in the past and look at the success. So those are the areas we look at, and it was not even called a referendum. We simply sat at home. And of course, to celebrate we remembered our heroes. Remember the 30th May Heroes Day remembrance. It was 100% compliance, and you saw it happen all the time when we sat at home. To talk more of now, we talk about our referendum. So the indigenous people can never lose, because we are one people, and of course we know that the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra, of course the leader of the biggest mass movement in the whole world, cannot fail, because we, the indigenous people, are the one who decide what happens. Everybody in Biafra land, we are speaking with one voice, and that day is just the day we are going to demonstrate. So it's the possibility of losing is not there, because all the people, all the indigenous people are doing one thing, doing it together. And that is why the chances of losing it cannot just be there. We are saying one thing and we mean it. We say we want to sit at home. Apart from the election boycott, it is our referendum. So you have double chance of winning. All we do is to sit at home. And of course, the percentage of success is going to be 100%, because there's going to be 100% compliance to the sit at home.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we are calling on the election boycott. Do you think all the southern states in the contraption called Nigeria should be involved, and what is your reason? Or what are your reasons?
Yes, you see, remember our leader has abolished what they call South and South whatever nonsense. He said there is only Biafra land. So when you talk about Biafra land, you talk about the Ijo, Ishekiri, the Ibibio, Anang. Those areas are Biafra land. And you talk about the indigenous people of those areas. So the compliance is everywhere in Biafra land. Any part of Biafra land, wherever that, of course, the indigenous people of Biafra are, we boycott the election. And that is what it means. So there's nothing called South and South East or whatever nonsense. It has been abolished by the indigenous people of Biafra. We are simply going to exercise our rights, and of course we are going to say no to the evil contraction called Nigeria, and as one people we will speak the same language, because you know it has always been divide and rule, and to the point that the people in Onitsha, remember that Onitsha in Anambra State, there are people in Onitsha, they say they are not Igbo. It got to that point. So when you're looking at those Ibibio, you're looking at there's nothing like South. You only have the indigenous people of Biafra. And when we say election boycott, it's going to be complied on everywhere in Biafra land. So the whole of Biafra land will be crippled on that election day.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, our lines are open. We are waiting for you to call in and make your contributions and of course your suggestions. It's very, very important. Okay, Mazuriako, we are talking about the international community coming to observe by themselves. You know, how do you get this result without carrying out a kind of voting?
Well, you see, what they would observe is they will observe the indigenous people of Biafra sitting at home. They will observe the empty streets. They will observe that, yes, the Nigerian government wants to conduct an election and nobody is voting. That is what they are coming to observe, and that is enough result for us. Because when they will come and rig, you know that at the end of that day, they will still announce results. You know that the results will be announced. So we, the indigenous people of Biafra, now called those witnesses, because they are coming to observe that, see, we didn't vote. Where are they getting the result? So those are the points of observation. They are not coming to do the counting. Remember that in the past, they are not responsible for coming to count or who is voting or who is not voting. They are simply coming to observe what happened that day. Did the people sit at home? Did the people vote? How was the streets like? What about violence? Did they experience violence in the north? Because there in the north and in Lagos, we don't know what's going to happen there. But in Biafra land, it's going to be peaceful because we are simply going to sit at home. So they will observe these things, and these are just what they are coming to do. So in Lagos, they're not, I don't think in Abuja, they are business. So they will actually observe that, yes, maybe they voted in the north, or maybe those children that, you know, those infants that used to vote, those pupils, some of them are even 2 years, they have registered them and given them PVC. They are actually going to observe how they do these things. They will observe how babies of 1 year old will vote in the north. So, but in Biafra land, they will observe that, yes, we sat at home. An election did not take place in Biafra land. So when we are saying our referendum, when we are coming out and of course making declarations, they will listen to us. So they are simply coming to observe, because when you're talking about United Nations, they are just international watchdog. They are watching what is happening. And of course, we want to show them what we are doing as the indigenous people of Biafra.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, it's very, very important. And we have just less than 3 weeks to go. We have less than 3 weeks to go. We still have lots of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. So we urge you all, wherever you are, especially those in diaspora, those in the city, just like Master Bright Urako have said, ensure you call your people at home, ensure you call your parents, call the grandparents at home, and tell them the importance of the election boycott. Tell them the importance of the election boycott. It is very, very necessary. And of course, we also going to use that day for our referendum. Tell everyone. People have been asking, how are we going about this referendum? And I think the leadership also need to come up and make some certain things clear about the referendum.
Yes, our leadership has never left us in the dark. That's one thing we know. And you know that you see, there's an announcement you make and people will collapse. So, and of course, they are watching the psychological mood of the people, because the date for Biafra referendum is a date of celebration. They will just collapse, and some people are having high BP already. You need to understand. So they are watching it, and our leadership is one that is so sensitive, and he has never left us in the dark. In fact, he will open the lines. Remember that the last time he opened the lines, saying, ask your questions. So our leadership don't leave us in the dark. He's the greatest teacher that has ever lived. If you talk about a teacher, if you talk about a living teacher, if you talk about a teacher, go through the whole world, there's no teacher like Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. So when he's saying things, he's using the simplest term that even my old grandmother or whoever would understand. He's talking to those women in Ogbete market, not just talking to those who call themselves intellectuals, those who call themselves learned men. No, he's also talking to those wheelbarrow pushers. He's talking to area people. He's talking to our people in Iguacha. So he is coming out, and he is going to make everything, reduce the language that the people understand. Our leader knows how to talk to us. Remember that each time you listen to our leader, you have a new life in you. Why? Because he understands the language of the people. He speaks to us in the angelic language. We spiritual. Biafra is spiritual, and of course he knows how to use the language of spirituality. He knows how to use the language of the people. He knows how to speak the Igbo language, and of course combine it with every language that we understand in Biafra land. And he talks to our conscience, talk to our person, talk to us in everything, and we understand him. So communication is not a problem. It's about managing the mood of the people. It's about being studying the psychological system, and of course understanding how the people feel. And of course the announcement, you saw how it came, like it was a rumor, and of course we know our leader. he's coming out and he's going to address us. That is very clear. And of course, Mazi Uchemefo is there. And of course, we are here talking about the good news. All you need to do is remember that election boycott is going to be held. We sit at home. That is one thing, one fundamental thing we must register in our subconscious mind, that before you greet your father, before you send money to the village, warn them that election boycott, sit at home, because of course we know that our people will be sending money to Focus because it is a special one. It's like the Passover that the children of Israel ate in Egypt and all that. So because it's going to be a kind of meal that we use to welcome Biafra. So that is actually, our leader need to explain more, talk to people. There are so many people that don't know how to cook. Our grandmother, so many of those women that cook well, a good number of them are dying, and there are few people that knows how to prepare the native soup. So actually that day, we are simply going to sit at home. We are not going to vote. We are going to choose between Nigeria and Biafra. And of course, we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we have already made our choice long time ago. All we need to do is display it on 16th February 2019 that we are sitting at home and that we are saying goodbye to Nigeria.
All right, to have a call on the phone. Hello, call on the phone. Call on the phone, can you hear me? Okay, we lost that call, and we have just a few minutes to go. We have a few minutes and we withdraw the curtain for today. Call us on WhatsApp, call our phone line, call us on Skype and Facebook. Our Skype and Facebook ID is Sunrise BTV. At Sunrise BTV is our ID on Facebook, it's our ID on Skype. Call us, it's important. Let's know your take. How prepared are you for the referendum? Do you think IPOB is going the right way? Do you think we are going to win or we are going to lose? What do you think? It's important. Let's hear your own view. A lot of you have been saying, let's do this referendum once and for all. Let's do it on that. It actually came from the people. So many people we are saying, let's just fix this election on that, this referendum the same day with the presidential election. Let's do everything once and for all. And today it has been announced, of course, based on your own suggestion. IPOB leadership have announced it. So let's also hear from you. Once again, it's important. What is your take? Do you like it that way? Or you think it's not going to work? If it's not going to work, what makes you think so? If you think it's going to work, what makes you think so as well? How much ready are you? How much ready are the people in your environment ready? How much ready are your families? It's very, very important. Colors, and let's know your take on this. It's important, okay? And of course, this moment will be going on a short break. While we wait your call, we will be going on a short break.
Of corruption. Your Excellency, let me tell you a story. And I was told when I was Minister for Roads and Public Works in my other early incarnation. This is a minister from Nigeria for Roads and Public Works who went on a tour to Malaysia. There, on invitation. So he was taken by his horse, taken around the country, shown the highways that they have constructed in Malaysia. And then in the evening, he was treated to dinner at the residence of that minister. There, he found a nice swimming pool and nice sofa sets and dinner.
Watching Sunrise News analysis on Biafra television. Call on. Hello, caller on WhatsApp. Can you hear me? The caller on WhatsApp, are you there? We have a call on WhatsApp. Can you hear me? That's too bad. Okay, we have another caller there on WhatsApp. Hello.
Hello, sister.
Yeah, hello. We can hear you. What name are you calling from? Hear me?
So I would like to make a contribution towards this as it's just said, in a better date than in Nigeria. So if they have been planning to kill us and they will not be setting aside for a referendum, it's no longer possible. All the international observers and everything, the Nigerian, all the agencies will, kind of shield their. But my advice this morning is this. I understand Bright Toriako speaking out by saying for agency called has this information advice that as much as it's important for us to inform people at home, that we inform all the African head of state. I'm saying African head of state. At the end of the day, it is the voices of these people that give legitimacy to it. If all these people come out and say, no, we don't recognize what you've done, it could be a setback. And it is what it is. It brings and a very strong backing to it. So not only African leaders, all the diplomats in Nigeria, wherever you can find them, let us shoot.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Your suggestion is noted. Drafting the letter and sending to the villages, and of course, ensuring that through that means people are also meant to be aware. Call on the phone. Hello. Hello, call on. On WhatsApp.
Hello.
Yeah, call on WhatsApp. Good morning. What's the name you are calling from?
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead. Okay, we lost that call, and of course, we have another caller there on WhatsApp. Hello. Hello, call on WhatsApp. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Watangozika.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother. Welcome to the
yeah, thank you. My name is Chidi. I'm calling from Paris. My contribution this morning is whether the devil like it or not. We Biafrans said enough is enough. We want to go our own sovereign state. And I believe those representatives that is going to come that day will see everything and will confirm it. So I do give the international community the benefit of that, to have to be slave in the hand of those the politicians, the politicians I'm talking about. Selfish that is happening in the Biafra land is caused by all those useless criminals called politicians in Biafra land, and enough is enough.
Okay, thank you very much.
On the 16th of February,
got your message. We have a call on the phone. Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. What's the name where are you calling from?
Good morning, Bright Oriato.
Good morning, my brother. Welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hello. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. My name is.
Your name is what? Okay, too bad we lost the call. Please do call back because your contribution matters a lot. Do call us back. Let's hear what your own contribution is about that. I think that could be a network issue. We'll have a call on the phone. Hello. Hello, call on the phone. Can you hear me?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you. What's the name? Are you calling from?
My name is Friday. I don't know whether you people hear me very well. I'm calling from Cross River State.
Okay.
Please, I thank you people. I thank my twin leader, Martin and Carlo. You people over there, I thank you people very, very well for what you people are doing for us. I repeat what I said again. I said that in that day, I and my stay in the house. I call my brothers, which is in Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, anywhere part of the Nigeria, they should come back home for Biafra land, so that even though they come back for Nigeria land, all that where they can be scarce, can be empty. I know our people. We are dominating even for this crossover state. You know, we are everywhere. If we can come back for our home and stay inside the house, that they lock ourselves and enjoy ourselves with our family, I believe that the world will know that something better that happened for Nigeria. Please, I call my brothers again. All of them should come back home, so that the world that will know that we are wonderful people indeed. May God bless you both in Jesus' name.
Thank you very much. Bless you too. Thank you very much. Of course, we are going to sit at home that very day. We are not voting. Call on WhatsApp. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you. What's the name? Where are you calling from?
Nice to meet you.
Where are you calling from? We can hear you. Good morning from here.
I'm calling from.
Okay, we lost that call. Of course, we are going to drop the call. Sorry, because you are not listening. I think you are listening to the device, and it's very bad. We've always said it here on this platform. Before you call, ensure you turn down the volume of your listening device. Very, very important, so that we can have an effective communication. Okay, thank you very much. Our viewers out there, will be drawing the curtain here for today. We'll have just one more caller who's going to be the last caller for today. Call on WhatsApp. Hello. Hello, call on WhatsApp.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you, good morning. What's your name?
God will hear it. I'm calling from Ghana. So I have had that you are saying, and that all these things is working. I believe that boycotting of the presidential election will be success. And I pray that as the Biafrans observe the boycott, that Chico Krabiara will bless everyone, and we will grab our heart. As for our politicians, that they are fighting, that is their competition, they are fighting to bring us Biafrans out for all these nice people that contest the presidential election. Atiku and Buhari. The two of them are the effective people that the world that come out for the presidential election. Nobody is sure about it. That we are hearing, all of them is Fulani, Lama Jilis. None of them can give Nigeria what they want. None of them can give us their. So we need to fight by ourselves. To depend that we will get our freedom to vote. That's a lie. Then that person is a deceiver, and that person is a hypocrite towards Biafran belief. Because we Biafrans don't believe that again. Because they didn't want us, and we too, we have rejected them. And our rejection will show when we got election. That's what we are planning. Some of at Southeast and some of them over there in the upper land, they don't understand what we are saying. That when the politicians, as this election, politicians are bringing out money, sharing money, and everybody is following them, trying to join and get everything. They don't want to move forward. They want to steal.
All right, thank you very much. We've got your message. Thank you very much. We'll have a caller on the phone because we've picked the call already. I would not leave you behind, so we'll have to take the call. Hello. Caller on the phone, can you hear me? Hello, are you there? Caller on the phone. I think you are listening to your device. You cannot hear us. Thank you very much for calling. We'll be
and of course a good pandedium as well. And I see that they've been a very memorial day in our life. Of course, thank you.
Thank you so much. Of course, we all have to get ourselves ready for what is to come. We have to get ourselves ready for the election boycott. We have barely 3 weeks, just up 2 weeks, and I think 4 days to go. So get ready for the election boycott and for the referendum as well. Thank you so very much for joining us today. I remain Ngozi Chukwuka. I will urge you to join us again, same time, same station tomorrow. Now, of course, stay tuned as more wonderful programs will be coming your way on Biafra television immediately after now. Bye for now.
Of corruption. Your Excellency, let me tell you a story. And I was told when I was Minister for Roads and Public Works in my other early incarnation. This is a minister from Nigeria for Roads and Public Works who went on a tour to Malaysia. There on invitation. So he was taken by his horse, taken around the country, shown the highways that they have constructed in Malaysia. And then in the evening, he was treated to dinner at the residence of that minister. There, he found a nice mansion, a swimming pool, and nice sofa sets, and dinner sets. So had dinner. So he asked his host, "How did you manage this house?" The host took him to the